Description: The Boyle Healthcare Centre Emergency Department will reopen to the public today, May the 16th, at 1:30 p.m. If you are experiencing an health emergency, call point 911. For EMS response. Wind warning. Issued at Friday 12:36 p.m. May 16, 2025. Issued by Environment and Climate Change Canada. Description: High northwesterly winds will gust over 90 km per hour this evening. ####. Wind warnings are issued when there is a significant risk of damaging winds. Please continue to monitor alerts and forecasts issued by Environment Canada. To report severe weather, send an email to qstorm@ec.gc.ca or post reports on X using #QCStorm. Find out more about when and how to call 911. Below is a list of non-emergency numbers to use when you don't need an immediate response or dispatch of emergency services. If you're not sure if your situation is an emergency, call 911. They will determine if you need immediate help. What is a non-emergency? 911 is not to be used for general inquiries such as calls to police concerning ongoing investigations, or calls to fire departments about community events. Unnecessary calls to 911 ties up valuable resources. Examples of non-emergencies include parking complaints, noise complaints, music, dogs barking, minor thefts such as a stolen bicycle or car break-in, following up with police on a file, requests or complaints about car towing. Not all of us have 911. If you're in the UK, you have a one we don't have. This is for UK. 999. Procedure: 999 or 112 is used to contact the emergency services upon witnessing or being involved in an emergency. In the United Kingdom, the numbers 999 and 112 both connect to the same service, and there is no priority or charge for either of them. Launched over 50 years ago, this piece of the Cosmos 482 mission was designed to survive the punishing conditions on Venus. A piece of Soviet hardware built to survive the burning, crushing environment of Venus will soon crash down to Earth, and, so far, no one has any idea where it might land. On March 27 and March 31, in 1972, the Soviet Union launched two new spacecraft bound for the planet Venus. The first, Venera 8, became the second spacecraft to successfully land on our sister planet and send back data on its extreme environment. The other probably would have been named Venera 9 had it actually made the journey to Venus. However, a problem occurred after it reached space, which trapped it in an elliptical orbit around Earth. The spacecraft was subsequently named Cosmos 482 instead, and it was left to eventually burn up in Earth's atmosphere. The first pieces of Cosmos 482 reportedly came crashing down only a few days after launch, as four titanium spheres, each bigger than a basketball, landed in a farmer's field near Ashburton, New Zealand. There are reports that a similar object was found in 1978, about 20 kilometers away. Apparently, two other pieces re-entered in the early 1980s. However, what could be the final part has stayed in orbit since. Venera 8 Descent Module Museum Replica NASA. The Cosmos 482 descent module is likely an exact duplicate of this Venera 8 lander, which measures roughly a meter across and weighs about 500 kilograms. NASA. Now, over 53 years later, that remaining piece is expected to re-enter Earth's atmosphere later this week. Normally, this wouldn't be a problem. Most spacecraft launched into orbit are not designed to survive re-entry. As they plunge into the upper atmosphere, traveling at speeds of around 25,000 kilometers per hour, they burn up and, at least in most cases, nothing reaches the ground intact. However, this piece of Cosmos 482 is not like most other spacecraft. It was built to survive a trip down through the dense, Scorching atmosphere of Venus. Venus, artist impression, Da Vinci NASA. An artist's impression of Venusian mountains, depicted for NASA's Da Vinci mission, Deep Atmosphere Venus Investigation of Noble Gases, Chemistry and Imaging. NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center Conceptual Image Lab. With temperatures close to 500 degrees Celsius and air pressure 90 times what we experience here on Earth, landing on Venus is like being in an oven set at twice its maximum temperature, nearly a kilometer down in the crushing depths of the ocean. Don't miss, look up. What's going on in the May night sky? When will this happen? Updated. According to Marco Langbroek, an expert on space situational awareness at Delft Technical University in the Netherlands, the current estimate for the re-entry, as of late on May smiling face with sunglasses, is at 3:34 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, on Saturday, May 10th. However, due to uncertainties brought on by factors such as space weather, his calculations show it could happen anytime between 4:58 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, May the 9th and 2:10 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, May 10th. As of May 9th, at 1:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, the ESA Space Debris Office has predicted a re-entry centered around 2:37 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Saturday, May 10th, plus or minus 3 hours, 16 minutes, and 48 seconds due to the uncertainties. That gives a re-entry window of between 11:21 p.m. Friday and 5:53 a.m. Saturday, EDT. As this is a lander that was designed to survive passage through the Venus atmosphere, it is possible that it will survive re-entry through the Earth atmosphere intact, and impact intact, Langbroek wrote in his satellite tracking blog SatTrackChem Leiden. It likely will be a hard impact, Langbroek added, explaining that it is doubtful that the lander's parachute would deploy, given that it likely has dead batteries after 53 years in space. There are many uncertain factors in whether the lander will survive re-entry though, including that this will be a long shallow re-entry trajectory, and the age of the object. Content continues below. Cosmos 482 Edit Cluster Satellite re-entering ESA CC by 3PT0 IGO. To represent the upcoming crash of the Cosmos 482 Venus lander, a NASA image of the Soviet Venera 8 descent stage has been digitally added to an artist impression of an ESA cluster mission satellite burning up as it enters Earth's atmosphere, using the GNU image manipulation program. NASA, ESA, CCBYSA 3.0 IGO, Scott Sutherland. When the Cosmos 482 lander comes down, it will surely produce a fiery display in the sky, day or night, for anyone who happens to be in the area. Although the probe will hit the top of the atmosphere traveling at more than 25,000 kilometers per hour, based on Langbroek's calculations, he estimates that it will slow to around 242 kilometers per hour by the time it hits the ground. Were it to have successfully landed on Venus in 1972, this object would have done so by first slowing down using the atmosphere, and then deploying a parachute for the final descent to the surface. It was not designed to survive a full-on impact at top speed, however its titanium shell makes it very tough. Crash zone. As for where the Cosmos 482 lander will crash, they are narrowing this location down. As of the afternoon on Friday, May 9th, the ESA's Space Debris Office issued the following map, showing the possible ground tracks for Cosmos 482's passes around Earth during the re-entry window. Cosmos 482 ground track May 9-1:15 p.m. The 4 possible ground tracks of the Cosmos 482 Venus lander during the re-entry window between 11:21 p.m. Friday and 5:53 a.m. Saturday, EDT. The red dot near the west coast of Australia represents the midpoint of this window. SR. There is more water than land between those latitudes. Thus, it is more likely that this probe will splash down into the ocean somewhere. However, there is still a chance it could hit land, and even a small chance it could impact somewhere that's inhabited. A collision in the Kearney Lake area of Halifax caused a large power outage and road closure Thursday morning. Halifax Regional Police first said they were at the scene of the collision in the 300 block of the Bedford Highway around 4:15 a.m. Traffic is blocked in both directions from Kearney Lake Road to Flamingo Drive. Nova Scotia Power was at the scene repairing damages to a power pole and wires. More than 6,000 Nova Scotia Power customers in the area were without electricity, according to the utilities outage map. Power was restored around 8 a.m. Police say motorists and pedestrians should expect delays and seek alternate routes. Traffic restrictions are expected to remain in place for most of the morning commute. There is no word on what caused the crash or the extent of any injuries. RCMP say an infant has life-threatening injuries after a crash at a rural intersection in central Nova Scotia. In a news release Friday, the Mounties say the collision happened at the intersection of Highway 14 and South Rawdon Road shortly after noon on Friday. It says a transport truck traveling west collided with a car traveling north on South Rawdon Road. An infant traveling in the car was taken to hospital by helicopter. The driver and passenger of the vehicle, a 34-year-old woman from South Rawdon and a 69-year-old woman from Hantsport, were taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The driver of the truck, a 70-year-old man from Williamswood, has minor injuries. RCMP say an investigation is underway. The intersection has reopened. Invest 94P is currently located south of the Solomon Islands in the South Pacific Ocean. The system has a low chance of developing into a tropical cyclone in the next 24 hours. What is an invest? An invest is an area of disturbed weather that is under investigation for its potential to develop into a tropical cyclone. Maximum sustained surface winds are around 45 km per hour, 25 knots. Minimum sea level pressure is estimated to be near 1,004 HPA. No advisories or warnings have been issued for Invest 94P at this time. Invest 93P, tropical low 33U, is currently located in the Arafura Sea. The system has a medium chance of developing into a tropical cyclone in the next 24 hours. What is an invest? An invest is an area of disturbed weather that is under investigation for its potential to develop into a tropical cyclone. Maximum sustained surface winds are around 45 to 50 km per hour, 23 to 28 knots. Minimum sea level pressure is estimated to be near 1,006 HPA. Satellite imagery shows a slowly consolidating, partially exposed low-level circulation center, LLCC, with flaring convection along the southern edge of the center. Analysis shows a moderate environment for development with low to moderate, 15 to 20 knots, wind shear, and moderate poleward outflow aloft. Furthermore, warm, 28 to 29 degrees Celsius, sea surface temperatures, and a humid climate are currently helping 93P, tropical low 33U, with potential development. Deterministic and ensemble models are in good agreement that Invest 93P will remain quasi-stationary near the Arafura Sea and continue to intensify over the next 24 hours. The first condition is that ocean waters must be above 26 degrees Celsius, 79 degrees Fahrenheit. Below this threshold temperature, hurricanes will not form or will weaken rapidly once they move over water below this threshold. Ocean temperatures in the tropical East Pacific and the tropical Atlantic routinely surpass this threshold. 2. The second ingredient is distance from the equator. Without the spin of the Earth and the resulting Coriolis force, hurricanes would not form. Since the Coriolis force is at a maximum at the poles and a minimum at the equator, hurricanes cannot form within 5 degrees latitude of the equator. The Coriolis force generates a counterclockwise spin to low pressure in the northern hemisphere and a clockwise spin to low pressure in the southern hemisphere. 3. The third ingredient is that of a saturated lapse rate gradient near the center of rotation of the storm. A saturated lapse rate ensures latent heat will be released at a maximum rate. Hurricanes are warm core storms. The heat hurricanes generate is from the condensation of water vapor, as it convectively rises around the eye wall. The lapse rate must be unstable around the eye wall to ensure rising parcels of air will continue to rise and condense water vapor. 4. The fourth and one of the most important ingredients is that of a low vertical wind shear, especially in the upper level of the atmosphere. Wind shear is a change in wind speed with height. Strong upper-level winds destroy the storm's structure by displacing the warm temperatures above the eye and limiting the vertical ascent of air parcels. Hurricanes will not form when the upper-level winds are too strong. 5. The fifth ingredient is high relative humidity values from the surface to the mid-levels of the atmosphere. Dry air in the mid-levels of the atmosphere impedes hurricane development in two ways. First, dry air causes evaporation of liquid water. Since evaporation is a cooling process, it reduces the warm core structure of the hurricane and limits vertical development of convection. Second, dry air in the mid-levels can create what is known as a trade wind inversion. This inversion is similar to sinking air in a high-pressure system. The trade wind inversion produces a layer of warm temperatures and dryness in the mid-levels of the atmosphere due to the sinking and adiabatic warming of the mid-level air. This inhibits deep convection and produces a stable lapse rate. 6. The sixth ingredient is that of a tropical wave. Often hurricanes in the Atlantic begin as a thunderstorm complex that moves off the coast of Africa. It becomes what is known as a mid-tropospheric wave. If this wave encounters favorable conditions, such as stated in the first 5 ingredients, it will amplify and evolve into a tropical storm or hurricane. Hurricanes in the East Pacific can develop by a mid-tropospheric wave or by what is known as a monsoonal trough. Additional items. Each year, an average of 10 tropical storms develop over the Atlantic Ocean, Caribbean Sea, and Gulf of Mexico. Many of these remain over the ocean. 6 of these storms become hurricanes each year. In an average 3-year period, roughly 5 hurricanes strike the United States coastline, killing approximately 50 to 100 people anywhere from Texas to Maine. Of these, 2 are typically major hurricanes, winds greater than 110 miles per hour. Typical hurricanes are about 300 miles wide, although they can vary considerably in size. The eye at a hurricane center is a relatively calm, clear area approximately 20 to 40 miles across. The eye wall surrounding the eye is composed of dense clouds that contain the highest winds in the storm. The storm's outer rain bands, often with hurricane or tropical storm force winds, are made up of dense bands of thunderstorms ranging from a few miles to tens of miles wide and 50 to 300 miles long. Hurricane force winds can extend outward to about 25 miles in a small hurricane, and to more than 150 miles for a large one. Tropical storm force winds can stretch out as far as 300 miles from center of a large hurricane. Frequently, the right side of a hurricane is the most dangerous in terms of storm surge, winds, and tornadoes. A hurricane's speed and path depend on complex ocean and atmospheric interactions, including the presence or absence of other weather patterns. This complexity of the flow makes it very difficult to predict the speed and direction of a hurricane. Do not focus on the eye or the track. Hurricanes are immense systems that can move in complex patterns that are difficult to predict. Be prepared for changes in size, intensity, speed, and direction. The fate of TikTok continues to be up in the air, months after federal legislation effectively banned the social media platform in the United States. President Donald Trump said during a news interview over the weekend that he would extend the latest TikTok ban deadline if a deal isn't struck by June 19, a date he set by executive order in April. TikTok's Chinese parent company has until June 19 to divest the social media platform, or face a ban in the US. "I'd like to see it done," Trump said about the divestment, adding that he has a little sweet spot in his heart for TikTok, which he claims helped him win votes during the 2024 presidential election. "It'll be protected. It'll be very strongly protected. But if it needs an extension, I would be willing to give it an extension. View 14 photos. Meet US TikTok content creators amid fight over social app ban. Meet TikTok content creators around the United States amid debates whether TikTok can be banned in the US. The White House did not immediately respond for comment when contacted by USA Today on May 10. As yet another deadline looms, here's what to know about the social media app. Will TikTok get banned on June 19? If ByteDance does not divest TikTok by June 19, it could be banned in the US again. However, Trump has stated that if a sale is not finalized in time, he will extend the deadline. The TikTok app logo is seen in this illustration taken August 22, 2022. Data Ruvik, Reuters. Is Trump allowed to extend the TikTok ban deadline again? Under federal legislation that put the ban in place, the president can implement a 90-day extension on the deadline to sell. But Trump didn't take this route in January or April. Instead, he signed executive orders delaying the ban by 75 days. If Trump wishes to sign another executive order ahead of the June 19 deadline, he can. Why is TikTok getting banned again? In January, TikTok went dark for a little more than 12 hours in the US after the app was effectively banned under federal legislation. US internet hosting services made TikTok unavailable to access, and app stores removed the app for download. This federal legislation was signed by former President Joe Biden in 2024. The legislation gave ByteDance until January 19, 2025 to divest TikTok or face a ban. Some politicians see TikTok as a national security threat, expressing concern that ByteDance may be sharing US user data with the Chinese government. ByteDance has denied these claims, which remain unsubstantiated. During the short-lived January shutdown, Trump promised internet hosting services and app stores that they could restore TikTok and not face legal penalties. Under the federal legislation, companies could be fined $5,000 per user they help access TikTok. For companies like Google and Apple, this could mean a $5,000 fine for each user who downloads or updates TikTok. Internet hosting services like Oracle didn't waste time rebooting the app, but it wasn't until February 13 that TikTok became available again in the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. A lawsuit launched by the family of a man who died after he was struck by a person who fell from the Leaside Bridge in Toronto says the city should have done more to prevent his death. 76-year-old Thornhill resident Harold Lusthouse was in the passenger seat of a vehicle traveling north on the Don Valley Parkway on June 16, 2024, on his way to a Father's Day brunch. Then, shortly before noon, a man who was walking on the bridge overhead jumped or fell to his death, according to a statement of claim filed Tuesday. The man landed on the car Lusthouse was in, violently crushing him and leaving him with catastrophic injuries. Lusthouse was hospitalized and died on June 18, 4 days before his 77th birthday. The $1.7 million lawsuit, which lists Lusthouse's daughter, Taylor Uditsky, son, Landon, and grandchildren as plaintiffs, alleges that the city was negligent when it failed to install a barrier on the bridge when it knew or ought to have known the risks of failing to do so. The defendant, City of Toronto, knew or ought to have known, since at least 2003, if not earlier, that the Leaside Bridge was a common site for falls and or suicide attempts, which it knew or ought to have known rendered the Leaside Bridge unsafe for pedestrians and or vehicular traffic traveling on the Don Valley Parkway without reasonable safety measures in place, the claim read in part. Toronto police haven't confirmed that the man who fell on the car Lusthouse was in on June 16 died by suicide, but said at the time that he had fallen. In an email to CTV News Toronto on Friday, police said they are not investigating the fall as a criminal incident.